The battle raged above the colony world, plasma bolts and laser fire streaking through the void as the Grand Fleet clashed with the invading forces. Our mission was to defend the colony, a vital alliance world, yet the chaos around us was far from a mere skirmish. The Terranian Imperium, once torn apart by a minor civil war, had unleashed its full might, dragging the entire galaxy into a catastrophic conflict. Thousands of warships filled the black sky, their bulky forms drifting in the endless expanse like silent predators. I always despised war. The fear, anger, and nervousness it brewed within me were too potent. Perhaps that was why I distrusted humans. Despite my best efforts to stay calm, the gnawing dread in my chest wouldn't relent. At the helm, the fleet admiral directed the battle, his face etched in grim concentration as he reviewed tactical readouts. His orders were sharp, each one either a desperate retreat or a bold flanking maneuver. But nothing seemed to make a difference. Ships were lumbering giants in space, their mass in the hundreds of thousands of tons, and space battles, despite the energy and violence, were slow, often dragging on for weeks. Yet here at the gateway to the core, we had amassed every available warship, every powerful vessel the Council could muster. But even this combined force was failing. For every Terranian ship we managed to destroy, 3 more replaced it, their endless reinforcements overwhelming us. The Admiral's frustration deepened as defeat loomed closer. He could see it, and so could I. We wouldn't hold for much longer. The air was thick with despair when the comms officer suddenly shouted, "My Lord Admiral. Capital-class starship incoming. Reactor signatures suggest it's human." His words struck us like a thunderclap. Confusion spread through the bridge. Humans? They weren't part of this war. They weren't even members of the Council. What were they doing here? The Admiral's voice was tense with disbelief and anger. We had no time to contemplate it. The human warship decelerated into the system, and at that moment, the atmosphere in the room shifted. Every instinct in me screamed that something was wrong. My fur bristled, and a cold sweat broke out on my paw pads. I felt like my heart had turned to stone. The ship that appeared before us dwarfed everything. Even from a distance, its size was incomprehensible, many times larger than our largest dreadnought, and the absurdity of its design left me breathless. It was a vessel I vaguely recognized, the shape reminiscent of something I had seen during my studies of human fiction. Yes, a Venator-class cruiser, heavily modified, of course. The ship's absurd number of weapons glistened against the backdrop of space, and it quickly integrated into our IF systems. Despite the looming threat, the Admiral rallied our forces, transmitting the necessary data to the humans. But all I could do was stare, then bury my face in my hands. I knew what was coming. I could barely suppress the wave of dread that flooded my mind. "Oh gods, no. Not that thing," I muttered. The Admiral turned to me, clearly perplexed. "What are you talking about?" he asked. "They're here to help us." Be thankful, but I couldn't respond. Despair overwhelmed me, and I began to frantically chant, "Why? Why? Why?" as I fell to my knees. The Admiral called for medical assistance, but I was beyond help. I knew what the humans were about to do, and it was worse than anything the Terranians had unleashed on us. As the massive human warship positioned itself beyond the reach of the enemy fleet, its weapons system powered up. A sinister glow pulsed across its hull, illuminating every weapon, every turret. My worst fears were confirmed. This was no ordinary warship, it was a doomsday machine. As the ship readied its weapon, the void seemed to tremble in anticipation. Its enormous reactor flared to life, glowing with ghostly neon light as energy coursed through the vast network of pipes and cables across its surface. All the power was being funneled into a single, terrifying weapon. The railgun mounted along the spine of the ship was incomprehensibly massive, stretching for kilometers. The sheer size of it made me nauseous. I had heard tales of human weapons, gigantic renditions of their older technologies, designed for maximum destruction, but nothing could have prepared me for this. My stomach churned violently as I watched the final moments before the weapon fired. When it did, reality itself seemed to warp. The very fabric of space twisted as if an ancient cosmic force had been torn apart. I could almost see the distortion in slow motion, the universe recoiling in agony at the projectile's unimaginable speed. The rail slug tore through space, passing straight through the enemy formation before any of them could react. For a moment there was only silence, then the devastation began. Ships within 5 kilometers of the slug's path were ripped apart, their remains disintegrating into nothingness. Those slightly further away suffered catastrophic system failures, turrets exploded, reactors imploded, and entire ships simply stopped functioning. The destruction spread like a ripple, reaching ships 50 kilometers away, crippling their systems and leaving them adrift. All of this occurred within a matter of seconds. 7 damned seconds. Half the Turanian fleet was obliterated or disabled in the blink of an eye. My body reacted instinctively. I shoved aside the medics and tore the headset from the communications officer. Overwhelmed by a mixture of fear, frustration, and resignation, I opened every comm channel I could. I screamed into the void, begging the humans to stop. Please, we surrender. We'll do anything. Just stop, but I knew my pleas fell on deaf ears. In the aftermath, the galaxy was in shock. Negotiations with the humans became frantic as half the galaxy tried to impose sanctions or pleaded with them to cease their madness. Meanwhile, my people, the Serani, sought solace in temples, praying for answers from the gods. The only response we received was maddening laughter, endless, deranged, and gleeful. The aftermath of that battle reverberated across the galaxy, a shockwave of fear and awe spreading in its wake. News of the human intervention and the catastrophic power they wielded reached every corner of known space. The Turanians, once a proud and unyielding empire, were now crippled, licking their wounds after suffering a loss they could never have anticipated. Our council fleet had been decimated, but we were the lucky ones. We had survived. As the reports flooded in, detailing the unimaginable destruction the humans had unleashed, the political landscape of the galaxy began to shift. Conversations that had once been focused on trade and territorial disputes now revolved around a single question: how could we stop the humans from ever using such power again? For days, I remained in a state of shock, the events of that battle playing over and over in my mind. It wasn't just the destruction I had witnessed, though that was haunting enough. It was the ease with which the humans had done it. A single ship, a single weapon, and they had crippled one of the most formidable fleets in the galaxy. And they had done it without breaking a sweat. I couldn't understand it. No one could. There was something deeply unsettling about the way humans approached war. They weren't part of the council, yet they had interfered in one of the most significant conflicts in galactic history, as if it was nothing more than a playground squabble. Their technology, their methods, everything about them defied explanation. The diplomatic channels were in chaos. Envoys from dozens of species, including my own, were dispatched to Earth, desperate to negotiate with the humans. Some came with threats, others with pleas, and a few, like us, with nothing but abject fear. We needed to understand what drove them. Why did they build such monstrous weapons? What were their true intentions? But the humans, in their typical fashion, were unpredictable. Some of their leaders laughed off the concerns, dismissing the destruction as a necessary action to restore balance. Others were more diplomatic, reassuring the galaxy that they had no interest in conquest. But none of them could give us the one thing we sought: assurance that such power wouldn't be unleashed again. The Serani, my people, retreated into themselves. Our once vibrant cities became quieter, more introspective. Temples, which had been places of worship and celebration, now echoed with the prayers of a people seeking answers. Why had the gods allowed such beings to exist? What purpose did humans serve in the grand design of the universe? Our theologians and philosophers debated endlessly, but no answers came, only more questions. The universe had changed, and we were not prepared for it. We had always been a peaceful species, relying on our diplomatic skills and alliances to navigate the complexities of interstellar politics. Now, for the first time in centuries, we were afraid, truly deeply afraid. Even our closest allies were shaken. The Iridani, who had been instrumental in forming the council, were at a loss. They had always believed in the power of unity and cooperation, but the humans had shattered that illusion. Their technology, their sheer military might, made everything else seem insignificant. The council held emergency sessions, scrambling to find a way forward. Proposals were made to include the humans in the council, to bring them into the fold in the hopes of controlling their power. Others argued that we should distance ourselves, create a coalition of species that could act as a counterbalance. But none of these discussions seemed to matter. The humans had already proven they could act independently, and the galaxy was at their mercy. I spent my days in isolation, unable to shake the images of that battle from my mind. The sound of the railgun firing, the sight of ships disintegrating as if they were nothing more than toys, haunted my dreams. I found myself questioning everything I had ever known. How could we, as a species, hope to survive in a galaxy where such power existed? We had always believed in peace and diplomacy, but now that seemed like a naive fantasy. The humans had shown us that the universe was far more dangerous than we had ever imagined. And the worst part was, they seemed to revel in it. There was no hesitation, no remorse, only cold efficiency. As the days turned into weeks, negotiations with the humans continued, but progress was slow. The galaxy's governments, once proud and independent, now operated with a sense of desperation. Even the Terranians, who had once been our greatest enemy, were now seeking alliances with anyone who could offer protection from the humans. It was a strange and unsettling time. Old rivalries were forgotten, replaced by a new, more pervasive fear. The humans had united the galaxy in a way no one had ever expected, not through diplomacy or shared ideals, but through sheer terror. The Council's deliberations grew more frantic. We debated how to approach humanity, how to either contain their power or secure their favor. Offers of technology exchanges were proposed, as if that could tempt humans to share their destructive potential. Some factions even whispered of sabotage, of infiltrating human society to uncover their secrets. But deep down, we all knew the truth. We couldn't control them. We couldn't outthink them. Their capacity for destruction far outstripped our understanding, and they wielded it with a kind of unhinged glee. The galaxy, it seemed, was no longer a place for careful diplomacy. It had become a stage for the unpredictable force that was humanity. My mind, already fragile from the trauma of that battle, spiraled further into despair. I couldn't stop thinking about the weapon, about how easily they could do it again. Each night, as I lay in my quarters, I could hear the laughter that had echoed through our temples, through the minds of every species that had encountered them. It wasn't the laughter of joy or mirth. It was the laughter of madness, of a species that found delight in chaos. And it terrified me. I could only hope that, somehow, the galaxy would survive this new era. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. For every comment that says we will heart every single one of them, thank you for your time.